Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy Godwin and Friends. I'm the resident psychic medium, Christy Godwin, and I'm here with Marie. Thank you so much for being here, Marie.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Marie has already been here once with part one of her story. Now we're going on to part two. And I just want to thank her for being here because this is a heart-wrenching story that even all the things I've seen as a psychic medium, I'm still taken aback every once in a while. So I do want to thank her for being here. And so anyone making comments on this podcast, please leave them in love. Now, in the first podcast, we talked about it was really about Marie as a child, really having to defend your mom and your sister against a stepdad who was horrifically abusive.
Yes.
And now we were just having a little bit of chat. You are saying now the first part has been published some, and you've had friends listen to it, and they had no idea what you were going through.
Not at the level that it had happened. I'm a very private person. So this is really stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I guess I never wanted to be seen as a victim because I'm not. I'm strong. And this happens to a lot of people in the world. And a lot of them have had it worse than me. Some have had it better than me. So I'm just using this as therapy to heal myself even further.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And you do have quite the story to tell. It's very interesting. And I think people will sometimes look at you in awe. And I hope that people will look at you and you have turned, you have felt the feelings, you've walked through that. Now you're in, I don't know, can I tell your age? Do you care?
Yeah, I don't care. That's
Okay,
fine.
you're in your 50s, correct?
Yes.
And you have had a family, a beautiful family, you've had a job, so you've been able to heal and go on and live as normal of a life as can be expected.
Yes.
Now, in the first one that came out on the podcast when we were talking, is you had come to me for a reading. We brought up your mom. You had said your mom had committed or taken her own life. And instantly I'm like, yeah, no, she didn't. And you said, another medium had also told you that. And then on the podcast, your mom did reference that if she had looked at, if people had researched it more, they could have told that she could not have taken her own life because her arm was not long enough to pull the trigger on the rifle. And, and then you said, you asked me, how did I know it was a rifle? I said, because your mom's showing me. And you said, because I didn't tell you that.
Yes, and I did not allude to that at all. That's why
No.
it was so enlightening for me that my mom showed you that.
And that I do ask that of spirits, just for anyone watching, or if they are going to another medium, we're going to sidetrack for a moment, for the spirit to give the medium something that they couldn't know otherwise. There's no way I could have known that. It wasn't published outside. Besides that, I didn't even know who you were walking into my office that day. I always laugh when people say, well, you can look at us on the internet. Who has time? Who has time? I don't have time.
No.
If you were to walk through my house, you'd be like, if this lady has any extra time, she needs to do some dusting.
But I don't know if you would have found it on the internet because it really wasn't covered in the paper.
I could see that. And even after our first meeting and after the first podcast, I did a little bit of research, but not a lot. Now, your stepdad horrifically abused your mom, talked about, and you even said that your sister, since the first podcast, mentioned walking in on your dad and he was strangling your mother.
Yes.
What was your stepdad? We don't want to cloud your dad. It was your stepdad.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And but he wasn't necessarily physically abusive to you and your sister. He would threaten you.
Yes, he would threaten us, but never really abusive. The only abuse that I received from him is when I was breaking up fights, where we would scuffle or I'd get thrown or pushed or shoved. The last one where he held me against the wall by my neck was about the worst.
Okay. But he did abuse his own children.
Yes.
And you witnessed that.
Yes, I did.
And now, at what point you left that house when you were about 13, correct?
Yep.
And could you see, even at 13, could you take a step back and see what kind of effect his abuse was having on his own children?
Oh, definitely. you could just tell that they walked on eggshells, or they fought all the time. They didn't like each other. It was always, there just wasn't a lot of, I don't know, it just wasn't a loving
Yeah.
dynamic. There
No
just wasn't
positive
any love.
interaction.
Yeah, there wasn't any positive interaction. Mm-mm.
Mhm. As you were describing that to me, I was asking, take me to that moment, and I could see them just being very combative to each other because that's how they survived
Yes.
in that state. Now, were any of the siblings mean to you?
Um, my stepbrother wasn't the kindest to me, and his oldest daughter, uh, Susan, wasn't the kindest to me. I fought with her more. His third daughter, I got along with more. She was my age. We went to school together.
Mhm.
We just seemed like they had a little more in common. And his youngest daughter, she was just so sweet. I just remember her just being so, I don't know, just kind of like the naive little girl that just kind of tried to stay out of the way.
Right. So, now, do you think his kids were ever jealous of you because you didn't get the brunt end of his physical attacks?
Yes, I always felt that, and I think it was the oldest daughter. That's probably why we didn't get along as well,
Mhm.
because it was almost like they would try to get each other in trouble. To I don't know. It was like if somebody did something that didn't make them happy, it was like they would purposely try to get them in trouble and then go tattle to him, and then they would get in trouble and get beat, or it was just weird. It was just a weird
Mhm.
dynamic in the
Mhm.
household.
As you were talking, it was like I could feel his oldest daughter being a little jealous of you, and I thought, "Where is this jealousy coming from?" And it dropped in that because you weren't getting the brunt end of it. Now, it has come out since then, and we're gonna get into the thick of it. Here we go.
I know.
That his youngest daughter, her name is Lucy, right?
Yes.
Came forward and said, you know, my dad had taken the lives of many women.
Yes.
Now, did you ever suspect that?
No. I um I had heard rumors before my mom passed that there was, see, I heard there was two other women before my mother that he was married to that committed suicide or had taken their own lives. And that there was questions. And this
Mhm,
was from his family.
mhm,
So then when my mother ended up, passing, and it was portrayed to us that she had taken her own life, there was just so many red flags for me. It's like, no, this is just, no. I just couldn't believe it. I don't know. It just never sat well with me. But
absolutely not. And you have to wonder if, as my psychic mediumship ability aside, your mother aside, if you heard a perfect stranger whose third wife took their own life, what,
yes,
what, what are the
right.
odds of that?
Yes.
But now, just tapping into the situation as a psychic medium, your mom, of course, no, they,
Yeah.
of course, again, I'm a psychic medium. There's no proof. It's not written. I'm just kind of going off what your mother is telling me. No, those ladies did not take their lives.
And I don't know if it's true either, because this was just hearsay from his family. These are just things that were told to me, and and I had to take it for their word, whether
Mhm.
it's true or not. But like you said, this isn't proven. So
Right. And so a lot of some of this we'll be talking about is what I'm getting from the spirit world, what you have heard and felt, and then what is actually known. Now, you didn't suspect any of that. You kind of left this situation behind you at the age of 15 when your mom had
yes,
passed away, and you kind of tried to pick up the pieces of your own life and move on, which you've done an excellent job.
yeah,
Appreciate
mhm,
that. I think you underestimate your strength, Marie.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, you're one of these people, the second you walked into my office that day, I could just feel that quiet strength in you. And I think people probably underestimate you sometimes because you are so quiet. You like to live a quiet life, but there is just amazing strength in you. Now, Lucy is his daughter who came forward.
Mhm.
and said, hey, my dad has been taking the lives of women for many years. Now, some of this you told me in the office, and something that dropped in, and I don't know why your mom set this person aside, because at this point, I was tapping your mom in my office and I could see all the women behind her. And what got me, and I mentioned it to you at that time, was not just the volume of the women that are with your mother, who
Mhm.
she is saying your stepdad took their own life, is the abuse, the horrific abuse.
See,
Like,
I can't even imagine you seeing all that. And wow.
what spirit shields me from some of it, just so people know listening, because I'm very clairsentient, so they would let me feel. But I did tear up. I don't know if you remember, I did tear up. It's
Yes.
always like the medium should not cry, but you were in the office, and because it took me by surprise, I looked at your mom, and then I realized who all those people were behind her. So I felt into them. And so there was that spirit was not expecting it. So I was just like, boom, in it.
Right.
The fear, the terror, the pain that I felt all at one time made me tear up.
Oh,
And
that's got to be one. See, you're just as strong as I am because
no,
wow.
and Marie was in my office when that happened. I actually grabbed the tissue and started apologizing, like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. The medium isn't supposed to cry." And something that I had said, which you kind of confirmed, was they were showing me that he would burn them.
Oh, uh, yeah. I I just for some odd reason it popped into my head as and that he would like burn her with cigarettes.
Yeah, that's what you said. Because when I said these ladies are showing me, and that was, I mean, they showed me a lot of things, but for whatever reason, I felt I needed to mention that to you, that they were showing me burn marks. And you said that you could remember him doing that to your mom.
And it wasn't, but see, it was so weird because it was never like a lot of her injuries were could be hidden with her clothing.
Hmm.
So I think that's where a lot of people didn't realize the abuse she was receiving because it was hid. And she
Hmm.
would always wear long sleeve shirts.
As your mom is stepping up right now, something else she is showing me is like bruises all on the back of her arm. He was constantly like, it was like his it's as sick as it sounds. She shows me him being out in public, and it's his way of exhibiting control over her, of pinching the back of her arm, like, I can take you now, I can hurt you now, or I can
Uh,
hurt you later.
and she was in a lot of fear of him. My older sister had alluded that after the last beating where she was in the hospital, she had begged her, please leave him. It's not going to end well, please. And she was so afraid of him. I don't know what he was holding over her. I don't know why she was so afraid, but she just kept saying that she was protecting us because he was going to kill us, that he could
That's
kill
what I
us.
was going to say. That's what it felt like, that she was doing it because he had threatened those that she loved.
Mhm. And I
And
had heard that he had threatened my grandparents.
people underestimate the ability, like, if you've never been in that situation, the amount of brainwashing and that happens. And people say, just leave. That's when a woman's life is in most danger, as you can tell with your mother, though it has not been proven that her life was taken by someone else.
Mhm. Yes.
I would say that if it was, if they dug into it deeper, then yes, it would be proven. Now, when Lucy stepped forward, do you know much about that time? Do you know much about what she has said?
I only know what different articles have been sent to me that I've read through, that she had claimed that she had went to different people throughout time. She had approached different people, um, just telling her story, and nobody really would believe her. There was one time that they went up, and I don't even remember when it was, that they evidently went and looked and didn't find anything. And so then they kind of blew it off again. And then she came forward again. And then this last time they went to the property and looked again and claimed that they didn't find anything again. But there were cadaver dogs brought this last time that had marked human remains. in multiple spots, and 3 different dogs marked. So it's not like it was just one
Right.
animal, there was
Right.
3. So why they're not finding anything, I'm not sure if they're just not going to the correct spots and truly digging. I just heard that they tested some soil. To me, that
Mhm.
is not going to give you evidence. You need to dig. And I know that it's going to be costly. I get it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if
No,
this
and that was
work,
something
yeah,
I just to confirm some of what Marie has said is that I have been involved in searches for people before. Yes, if 3 dogs, 1 dog hitting, I mean, people like, and some dogs, I'm sure it's, some dogs are better than others, but for 3 to hit on the same spot is, uh,
yes,
you know, mm, that's not a coincidence.
right.
Also, it's remarkably difficult to find remains in a field, unless you start digging up an entire area.
Mhm.
And as I'm saying that, your mom is stepping up and she's taking me like across the street from me as a farmhouse, and she's wanting to take me to the back where there's like trees and there's a lot of overgrowth there.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I feel like more dirt has been put on that area. I don't know if you can confirm that or not.
From what Lucy had alluded in one of the stories is that they would go out there and put extra dirt on these graves and like lie to
Okay.
cover like the smell or whatever. So that's what she has said, that they would always, like keep covering it up.
And poor, now Lucy is his daughter. Poor, I cannot imagine. So he made her help him dispose of the bodies.
That's what she's said in these articles.
Now, have any of the other siblings said that?
No. Well, Gary is deceased, so he can't
Mhm.
speak. Her older uh, sister is saying no, that she's wrong, that her father would never do this. And the middle daughter is nowhere. She's not speaking publicly.
Mhm.
So I think she's probably like me. It's like, I don't want to be in the limelight, but that's why I decided.
Exactly,
Well,
exactly. But I
but
have to wonder,
yeah, I decided to go this route though, because it's not media. These are
right?
my words and my mom's words.
And you have to wonder, the one who's choosing not to speak, if it was a parent who she felt strongly about their innocence, who she had a great love for, would you not be screaming from the rooftops about their
Yes,
innocence?
yes.
So sometimes not talking is saying as much as talking is.
Mhm. Yes.
Now, something that I thought was odd whenever you were in my office, this came up on the first appointment. And just so everyone listening, I was wholly unprepared for that. That was just going to be my normal, let's talk to a grandmother.
Yeah.
Maybe a, past lover. And but your mom set a couple of people apart whenever, because there were so many ladies, she wasn't going to muddle through them all because there was no way you'd be able to identify them. But she showed me a younger person, and this person looks to be about 14.
There is one of the stories where there was a 15-year-old girl brought to the property and disposed of.
And something else your mom told me, which you kind of confirmed, is I'm seeing 2 men.
They are in that article that Lucy alluded that there were 2 men that showed up in this car, and this young girl was in the they removed her from the trunk and disposed of her. And she didn't know who they were.
Now, when I asked this situation, I was like, what's going on here? I'm asking your mom that. Who's in spirit, just for anyone listening, in spirit, can't confirm this. I'm hearing that your stepdad felt that those men were incredibly stupid. Like your stepdad was very smart about who he took. It was some people that he felt like didn't have a history and wouldn't be tracked.
Oh, which could be.
So this girl, I'm feeling like I'm feeling an angry fit, I'm hearing. So she must have had an angry fit and, left home or something
Mhm.
like that. And so she had more ties of people looking for her.
Oh,
And he
okay.
felt that they were incredibly not smart by doing that. And I also do not feel like that girl was past, like when she got to the property and was in the trunk, I feel like she was incapacitated and like kind of out of it, but I don't feel like she was completely gone at that point.
Oh, wow. Poor
And so I
thing.
have to wonder who knows that's not talking, because you have to think about if these two men brought this young lady to your stepdad,
Mhm.
knowing
Yeah,
that he would help them and knew
right.
how to help them, what kind of rumors were rolling around that people aren't talking about?
I I don't know. It just, as this is just evolving and stuff, it just blows my mind. It's like watching one of those TV documentaries, and it's so surreal to me.
Mhm.
Never in my life would I ever have thought it would develop to this. I
And,
mean, I know they were a mean man, but wow.
because you can't wrap your brain around that kind of evil walking
Mhm.
on earth.
But I guess, as this evolves and it is brought to light, actually looking in his eyes that last fight, I could see it. He
Mhm. If you have ever, and for anyone listening, if you've ever been exposed to someone in your life, which I have, so I understand what Marie is talking about, when they get, look, I'm getting chills because it has happened to me. Someone close to me would get that kind of out of body experience when they were being extremely mean and evil. And it's one thing for someone to just be angry and clouded with anger. It's another thing when you can see them disassociate.
Yes, it is. It's yeah,
It's a look that you never forget.
right. And you
So
don't.
and so that's what Marie is talking about, that one of the last fights she witnessed right before she decided she couldn't stay with her parents anymore, or her mom and stepdad, she had to leave. You saw that disassociation. You said you knew at that point that you had to go.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah. And I'm telling anyone has ever seen that. I had someone who was in my life a lot. And when you saw that disassociation happen in her eyes, it was, in my case, it was a female. It was scary.
Yes, very. It. Oof, I'm getting
Yeah.
chills just thinking
I
of
got
it.
chills too. I'm telling you, it's hard to see. So now you have not spoken to Lucy personally about this.
No, I have
Have
not.
you thought about reaching out to her?
I have, um, and in the very beginning when all this kind of started to come to light. Uh, my little sister was like, "We need to go to the authorities," and my nephew was like, "We need to," and it was like, "No, no, we're not saying anything. We're just standing down." And they're like, "But," and I'm like, "No, you guys don't realize what this is going to bring to your life." Because if it turns out to be true, think about the media circle. Think about your children going to school. And I have a daughter I have to think about. I mean, this could change her life extremely. Even for me to
Yes.
do this is scary. Um, and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "You guys watch these documentaries. Look at what they do to their lives." So I kind of stood down for a long time. I just didn't say anything. But my mom must have just been pushing and pushing and pushing.
She was.
So I just started thinking outside the box. How can I get the story out in a manner of love and compassion for my mother without all the media hype?
Hmm.
Um, and also, I want to bring healing to others that have been through this,
Right.
to let them know that you can rise above it.
You can. And for the bravery of everyone involved, like you
Yes.
stepping forward, because I know you didn't want to. And I remember you left my office. I was like, okay, think about it. We'll meet again in a week. Just kind of think about it, how you want to proceed. And over that week, now your mom's in spirit. She kept coming to me, and I would send her right to you. Like she'd come to me, it's like, oh, Marie needs to bring justice. I was like, you know what? Then you go to Marie. Like you
Yeah.
infuse her with the strength. And it's funny because then when I talked to you later, you had some drop-ins. You had spirit, you had clear signs from your mom
Yes. Very clear.
that she wanted you to do this. Now, during this time, because you come to my office, and you kind of had to rush out because I was rolling, even though we went way over, I was rolling into another appointment, didn't think much about it. I didn't Google because I didn't want to be clouded.
Right.
So but when you said there was like up to 70 women, I thought in my head, honestly, Marie, I'm like, right, 70, come on now.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's a lot of people to have
It is
just
a lot.
disappeared off the face of the earth at the hands of one man. But then I was sitting in the living room one evening and my husband asked me, and he knows how to work me because, if you get in your head, it's called your ego. If you get in your head, you're going to be more clouded. And so my husband was casually asking me about my meeting with you. And I had told him a little bit. He brought it up again. And he said, well, how many women were there? And without even thinking, I looked at him, I said 63. And then I took a step back and I said, what? And he kind of smirked because he knew what he had done because, he had asked me just to get that off the cuff answer from me where I wasn't in my ego. But then I sat, and then even now, I think, is that possible? Is it possible for one person to take the life of 63 women?
I know. It's surreal. It's just absolutely surreal. Yeah. It's like, and how do you hide it? How do you hide 63?
You know, Now Lucy said, because when you were in my office, you said that she had said he would kill 5 to 6 women.
Mhm,
Oh, and it was over the course of a year, and it was over the course of a decade that he did
mhm.
this.
Yes.
So
That's
that
what
would,
she's,
and so she
yeah.
said it was about, between 50 and 70. She actually wasn't sure herself.
Mhm,
How do and it is hard for normal people to wrap their brain around. How do you go on living a normal life?
mhm.
Now, I will tell you, I had not Googled him until right before this podcast. I wanted to see a picture of him. And that is something that actually doesn't surprise me because he looks like a very put together,
Mhm.
middle aged man,
Yes. It's, yeah.
which is how a lot of these people get away with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm talking about how some of the abusers and monsters get away from being a monsters, though I would venture to say not many are as bad as your stepdad is being accused of being. But even when you look at, and that was some of the things when you from outside looking in, oh, they're fine. Oh, he looks fine. He doesn't look like a monster. They don't.
Mm-mm. Nope. They're just normal, everyday people. Just normal everyday. And he was, when he was with my mom, he was a mechanic. He just, worked on cars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simple job. Not like he was some corporate bigwig or anything. He was just a mechanic.
Yeah. And what I am hearing, and I don't know this for a fact, I don't know if you can confirm, that he had gotten like into fisticuffs with other people. Like he did have an anger problem,
Yes.
but it
Well,
wasn't. I mean, there's a big difference between having an anger problem and, taking the lives of so many people.
yes. But no, he just, it was like Jekyll and Hyde with him. One minute he's happy, the next minute it's like, watch out, we're all running.
Hmm. And
So,
I also want to bring to light for any women who are in abusive situations that want to leave, to make sure that they are getting help and not leaving, because that's when your mom then is said to have taken her own life. Though I would bet just about all the money I have in the world that she did not take her own life. Because when they lose control, when
yes,
when those types of people feel like they're losing control of what they feel like they own is when they absolutely lose it.
yes. And
And
I'm
so
not
now,
what he held. One of the biggest questions my nephew has is, did my mom know that he was killing women?
no,
Or did she not know?
she
Because
did not know.
Okay, because that's where they're like, I guess they were questioning, was he holding this over her head, making her help him? And that's why she
I do
stayed.
not feel like she ever helped him. What she is showing me is that she had an inkling,
Okay.
because I feel like what I'm hearing in my head is that threat of what I did to those other women, I'll do to your people.
Okay.
I won't just do it to you. I'll do it to your mom.
Yeah. It's just my little sister keeps having a reoccurring dream about my mom where she's digging and digging and digging. And so that's where she was wondering if this dream meant that she was helping, digging graves and disposing, or if this was maybe her coming to us, telling us to dig. We need to keep digging. We need to
When
keep.
you said that, I got chills. And my chills, just for everyone watching, are very scientific. Like whenever, and that is true. If you're ever with a medium or you think something, you get chills, that's spirit's way of saying, yes, that's it. It's your mom's way of saying to dig a dig. Now, did your mom ever help dispose of the bodies? No. Do I think, is she letting me know that she knew, but she didn't know,
Okay.
if that makes sense? He certainly threatened her with it.
Okay. Yeah. And it was just an oddity for her to be so, because my mom was a strong woman. And she had a lot of friends, and we had a lot of strong connections with family and stuff. And she was so close to her brother. They were like two peas in a pod. And she was close to her mom and dad. So, and like our aunts and uncles and stuff, that's why it was really weird for her to isolate herself and to completely cut us all off.
Was
So that's
protection.
right. And so that's where, but we didn't get it, and I didn't get it for a long time. It's like, what shook her so hard to completely isolate herself from her family
Hmm.
and the community? I mean, she I don't know, it was just one of those questions in my mind growing up. It's like, what caused this? And we were just always told to just leave it alone, leave it alone, don't speak of it. So
Hmm. You know, your mom, just as you're talking, she was dropping in all kinds of information and all kinds of feelings. And what she's showing me is she, for one thing, wants this to go out in a bigger spectrum of not just about her and what she went through, but there are other strong women. Just because someone is in an abusive relationship that they can't get out of does not mean they're not strong.
yes,
And she wants that to be very clear, she said.
yes,
Um, she, as you're talking about, what made her say, she knew what he was capable of, and look what happened to her.
yes.
She knew when she left him the odds of her not living. She knew what those odds were going to be.
Well, see, and I think that kind of, because as I've talked about this, and now it's weird, memories are starting to flood in. The last time I was with her, she just looked
Defeated.
defeated, like broken and just sad. And it was really, really hard for me to leave her again. I mean, that was guilt was one of the hardest things for me to get through with all of this, um, feeling the guilt of
Hmm.
leaving her.
Hmm. Your mom stayed with him so long, and she is showing me, she gave me a knowing of what would it have been like to have lost your mother, and know, like in her situation,
Mhm,
for her mother to have been her life taken,
mhm.
and know it was her fault.
Yes,
Though it wouldn't have been her fault, she would have thought it was her fault because her, husband had already threatened her parents.
right.
She knew what this man was capable of. And at first, she didn't understand it, but she did at some point have an inkling of what was going on. And that's
And
when she got really scared.
yeah, because she did. The last time I seen her was in her apartment when she had left him. And she just looked broken and just sad and just scared. And when we left, you could just see the fear in her eyes. It was almost like she knew she wasn't going to be around much longer. It was just
Yes.
weird.
He
It
would
was a
never have allowed that. I mean, you think about this man, did he ever have a divorce where they just split and went their separate ways?
there there was a story where he's got, or I think it was Lucy that put the post together that he's got 10 children, from different like girlfriends and stuff. And I believe in the very early relationships with the earlier children
Mhm.
before the last batch. Yes, they probably did like have a relationship that ended or whatever the case may be. But that's where I'm not sure the with like Lucy's mom. It was Lucy's mom was one of them that took her own life, or they alluded to. And then I had heard there was another one before Lucy's mom, but I don't know if that's true. Um, and both of them are questionable. So I'm not sure.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes, and so your mom very much wants for the good of understanding, your mom is saying the prevalence of domestic violence out there.
Mhm. Yes.
And she's also talking about that you can look around, like she's showing me like scanning a group of women and you never know who's
No,
being abused
you
and things
wouldn't.
like that.
No.
And your mom knew, like she knew the second that she left him that she probably was not going to. It's funny that I said that, like I said, your mom was telling me that she felt like she wasn't going to live much longer. And you kind of had that feeling whenever you left her at that apartment.
Well, it was probably within week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after that we got the phone call.
Hmm.
Um, because it was right around Christmas time, and we got a phone call in January, the very beginning of January. So it wasn't very long.
So now, do you know how old Lucy was when she first went to the authorities and said something about it?
Well, see, that's what's so weird is the timing. They keep saying that it was like 45 years or something like that, which would mean she was only maybe like 8, 9 years old when she started saying something,
Okay.
which then it also makes me want, that's why, doing the math, that's why we had asked the question, did he make my mom help, or was this happening while he was with my mom and maybe she didn't know it? Because it would have had to be in that time frame somewhere.
Hmm.
If it truly went on for like a decade,
Hmm.
I almost feel like some of this was happening while he was with my mom.
I agree. I think it was.
And that's what then, I don't know. It was weird because the first time that this was brought to me, I completely felt sick to my stomach, like I wanted to puke.
Hmm.
It just like completely brought me to my knees. And I don't know if it's just because I believed it in my heart and soul, or I didn't, or I was
Hmm.
fighting with myself to not believe it, or I don't know. It was just weird.
I think what when whenever you said that, what I saw was things that you knew, like the disassociation you felt whenever you left your stepdad that day. You knew he was
Hmm.
capable of much more than what you had thought about. The
Hmm.
fact that you just always felt like your mom had never taken her life.
Hmm.
Then, the day that you had left her apartment, because I can see that you see the look in your mom's eyes as clear today as you did back then,
Hmm.
of that fear. Now, so when they came to you and you started hearing these stories, it chinked into place.
Hmm.
It's like whenever sometimes we'll know things and it doesn't make sense, but we know them.
Hmm.
And so when you heard the truth of it, you knew what he was capable of. What your mom is saying that she always knew that your stepdad had a wandering eye is what she's calling it.
Oh,
That he was
which,
never faithful to her.
oh, okay. So it could be happening while,
And she did at some point got suspicious and she never actually helped him, but she kind of had a knowing, kind of like she knew something was wrong. And
okay,
then he threatened her with it.
okay.
I don't
But
hear him saying, I took the lives of those women and I will take yours. I hear it more in, I'll do to you what I did to them.
okay.
I'll do like that underlying threat. But she knew. She knew
Yeah.
what he was capable of.
Yeah, well, she took it firsthand what he was capable of.
Hmm.
Ugh.
So now, whenever you are, what is your hopes that will happen now? Are they going to go and dig on this property? Now, this property is west of Tabor, Iowa, which is about 40 minutes from Omaha, Nebraska, from what
Yes.
I understand.
Mhm.
And now I want to cover, a lot of people are probably out there saying, 63 people, how could 63 people? Well, you have to think about it. If it was over a decade
Mhm.
and it was 5 or 6 people a year, 5 or 6 people could easily disappear. And if they're, transients,
Yes.
people that don't have, and I think he was very careful about that. And I think that's why he was so upset, your stepdad was, when that young girl was brought to the property, because she did not fit that prostitute transient.
Because it could have opened up the can of worms.
Hmm. And I'm seeing the 2 men that brought her didn't really fare well after that at your stepdad's hands.
Yeah, it was alluded that there are 2 men buried somewhere on that property also.
They aren't by the well, I'm hearing. By a fence.
Oh. But what's weird though is they're not all buried in the well.
No, I'm hearing they're not. I'm hearing they're also not all buried on that property.
Mm-mm. No, because what's strange about this is the well, I believe the well that she is alluding to is not even on their property, it's on the neighbor's property.
Oh, those poor neighbors.
Well, it's and that's the other thing that would just make me sick is like if you're burying people in people's wells, it's like they're drinking this water. But he didn't bury him in the wet well. They're buried in a dry well
Mhm.
because there was also wells on the property that for like overflow water, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, so they're not buried in like the well that they would use for water. They're buried in another well that's what they considered a dry well.
Mhm.
And I've been to the property, so the property is so expansive and overgrown and it's hilly. I could see where he could hide 63 bodies.
And I know people listening to this are like, there's no way. I promise you, I have been involved in cases where I was helping try to find a body. And we kind of knew we were on the right spot, because what I didn't even realize this person was missing. I had no idea. And I was doing a gallery event where I read a bunch of people. Someone stepped up, and it was someone who had been missing in the community. And this person described to me where they were. Because that area had already been searched, someone in the audience knew where it was. And it was so surreal because I walked out onto this property where, the person in spirit said they were. And it's like I had been there before. Once I was taken there, because all these things, so, the coincidences just don't happen. We knew we're
Mhm,
in the right spot, but it's hard to find a body on an expansive piece of land.
mhm. I also feel though, and I don't know why, it's almost like they know that it's true, but they're not ready to bring it to light or they're hiding it. It's like it's being hidden or shuffled under a rug for some reason, and I don't know what that reason is. And it's like, if there's truly 63 women that have went missing, why would you not want to bring closure to their families?
I agree with you on all accounts. I feel like it is right now about to come to light. Um, I feel like I feel it being, your mom is showing me picking up a rug and someone sweeping it like it's being swept under the rug because like they didn't want to face it. And I don't know why law enforcement wouldn't want to face it. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it just, and I guess just being around him and just see, people tell, growing up, I don't know, I just must have an aura about me. People tell me things that have nothing to do with me. I don't really care. It's none of my business. But they tell me things and I was like, really don't care. So, shuffle it behind I don't care. It's almost like he had so many different run-ins with the law and he did so many different crooked, bad things. And that's why I never really trusted him. So is there some connection that he has that if this gets brought to light, that it's going to like have a trickle down effect where it's going to bring other people's names down, that, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I absolutely know what you mean.
And that's why I'm wondering, is like, is
Mhm.
that why it's being hidden? Is it
And
there's
that's exactly what I was being shown, that the people that he was involved in are almost gone.
okay.
The people that would have gone down with him
Hmm.
are almost all gone.
Okay.
And so now you have a set of fresh eyes in there. And I'm seeing there's one person in particular I see over there who is like, what? No, call the FBI. We're getting this taken care of. Like I see one, maybe two, no, one person who started the ball rolling and who brought in another one. And they're like, no, this is crazy. And they are like, no, let's call in the FBI. Let's get this going right. And so I think you're absolutely spot on when you say that, because your stepdad had like he had so many different lives.
Yes. And that there's just, and I mean, and some of the stuff that was told to me when I was younger, I didn't know anything. I was 13 years old, you know, um, but now that I'm older and all this is coming to life, it's like, makes more sense now. So,
Exactly. That's what I was saying, how now things are starting to chink into place for you. Also, I want to go circle back to when you said you don't know why people tell you this. There's a group of a light worker is a soul that has incarnated on this planet to just raise the vibration of the planet. There are several different kinds, of course, psychic mediums if they're doing the job right. The
mhm,
Mother Teresa's, the Martin Luther Kings of the world. Also, Marie, it's the Maries of the world, the people that hold space for others. When you hold space for people, it means you create a safe place for them to be who they are at their soul level. And a sign of that is you have people just telling you things, and you're like, we're in the middle of the grocery store. Why are you telling me this? I don't know you.
right. Yes. And I do. I get approached from so many different people and they tell me things and I'm like, okay, nice. Yeah. I just let them talk.
So I want to thank Marie for being on the podcast today. We're going to see where we're going to take this. If she wants to do another podcast on it, if maybe we can get her to go live where she can answer people's questions straight out. I do want to, in her mother's words, really offer comfort to those who are in domestic violence situations. You are not weak. She wants that to be very, because I feel like your mom was constantly judged, she's saying, about, why aren't you leaving him? Why are you putting up with this? And you have no idea of the terror. Your mom is saying this, the terror and manipulation that happens behind closed doors that keeps people there.
I do have one question before we wrap up. When I first came to your office, you mentioned a female around my mom, of the name Rose. And I guess my question is, I don't really have a relative Rose. I know my mom loved roses, but could it be a name of one of the women that are standing with her?
Absolutely, it could be. I'm also getting a name Sylvia.
Okay.
As you're talking, I got a name
Okay.
Sylvia. I don't remember. It's funny if everyone comes to me for a reading, I don't remember my readings. Certain things I remember. I remembered like her mother and all those women standing behind her because it brought me
Mhm.
to tears. Um, I'm also hearing a name Carol because as you're talking, it's like, Mom, just give me a few things. I heard the name Sylvia. You heard, you said I said the name Rose before. I'm hearing the name Carol. In particular, she's bringing forth someone who I'm getting this lady is 24. She has hair a little bit shorter than mine, but it's big hair. It reminds me of Farrah Fawcett, like the curls and all
Mhm.
of that. This lady is super skinny. Looks like she did hair, like she's showing me track marks. I'm not sure what kind of drugs this lady did, but she's showing
Okay.
me track marks. And this one in particular left a child behind.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not good.
The stories these ladies could tell.
Oh, I know. And that's kind of the other thing. It's really, I feel like their story needs to be heard. We can't keep shuffling this under the rug.
Mhm.
And I do know that there's one sheriff that really believes Lucy, and he really wants to bring it to light, but
Okay.
I don't know if it's just that they're trying to do it right this time,
They
or if
are.
just shuffle it under the rug again.
That I think that's the gentleman, because I said I see someone who's really just pushing this forward, so that must be him, that sheriff that you're mentioning. He's not having an easy time of it, I will tell you. I'm
No.
feeling that. He's not having an easy time of getting help, and I feel him kind of banging his head up against the wall, like he's getting really frustrated with the lack of help that's coming his way.
Well, the FBI has even like stood Lucy up and stuff. So it's just so strange. It's like, why would you not want to figure this out? I mean, this
Right.
is something that, why would somebody keep constantly pushing, 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 pushing and come back to you and
Mhm.
come back to you and come back to you?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. So I guess
I
we
mean,
will see
because she
what,
was putting her life in danger. Lucy was putting her life in danger. I
yes.
know now her stepdad has passed, but when she first started coming forward, your mom is saying that her, she almost lost her life a couple of times because she wouldn't shut up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I keep hearing, that she just didn't stop. And I guess I didn't realize it was that bad. So,
Mhm.
yeah, interesting.
All right. If anyone has any questions for me or Marie, you will have to funnel them through me, but I will be sure to get them to Marie and ask her. So that my contact information is on the bottom of this podcast. It's Christy Godwin 111 at gmail.com. I promise that I will make sure that I get those to Marie and get some answers. I know there's probably a ton of questions out there. Um, and make sure, again, her mother is stepping forward, really talking about the strength of women who are in domestic violence situations. I think as a general public, we look at them as being weak. And why are they just leaving? And her mom is having none of that. Her mom wants these ladies to know that they are beautiful souls and they have a right to be safe, and to that there's your mom is also saying there's a lot more help nowadays than there was when she left.
Yes, there is a lot more help. Women are seen more than they were, because
Mm,
women really weren't seen.
no.
And the
No.
other thing that I really want to allude is that these women may be portrayed as being weak, but think of the strength that it takes. I mean, in my mom, I never understood it, but my mom was so strong to push us away, to
She
walk
was.
away from her children to protect them.
Yes.
I mean, think about a lioness. She will fight to the death to save her cubs. Think about the mama bear. She
Yes.
will fight to save her cubs. And that's what my mom did.
And that's what she mentioned earlier when you were talking about how she had kind of isolated herself. She was isolating everyone for protection.
Yes. She was fighting the good fight, but she was doing it alone when she didn't need to. We would have fought
Mhm.
with her.
No, but she didn't see a way out. She'd seen
No.
the things he had done. She knew some of the things he had done, and she was petrified.
Yep. But that's why I want women to know you're not alone.
No. On that note, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank Marie for stepping forward again and having this conversation. I know it's not an easy one.
No, it's not.
All right. Again, if anyone has any questions, which I expect a lot to come through, Christy Godwin Psychic, or Chris, well, my website is Christy Godwin Psychic Medium. You can message me through there, or Christy Godwin 111 at Gmail. All right. I hope everyone has a blessed day.